Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. As I always tell you, the truth, it's always late at the crime scene, but will come eventually. So in this case we have if you remember that, the Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines, the gas pipelines from Russia to Germany. Remember those that were blown up by we don't know who, but just because we don't know, that raises suspicion. The investigation is still ongoing, supposedly, and it's conducted by Sweden and Denmark, and they still couldn't find who was what. One thing is for sure, it's not the Russians, because if it were the Russians, we would have known this by investigation's outcome in about, 3 days and a half. Now it's been, 3 months or so, and nothing. They're still working on it. That's very, very suspicious. But it seems like the truth gets to the crime scene. How? The Washington Post, the little weasel outlet in the US, made an extraordinary admission. Remember, the Russians said who the perpetrators of that attack, or those attacks, of the pipelines were. Remember? If not, I will remind you. It was according to the Russians, it was the UK's Royal Navy, or people implicated in that were part of this little club. So, this article comes from Sputnik, so pick up your glasses for Sputnik, okay? When we have the Ukrainians get this down and get the Ukrainian media outlets glasses. So what's behind US media's sudden recognition that Russia didn't blow up Nord Stream pipelines? So the US media all of a sudden has the enlightenment that Russia did not blow up the Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. Well, I kind of told you that when it happened, when the sabotage happened in the Baltic Sea. Why? Because it was very, very illogical from the beginning, illogical and counterproductive for the Russians to do that. And I did that on 2 or 3 videos, and I came with probabilities, possibilities and probabilities on who did it and who would benefit the most. And it was one country by far benefiting and saying that they will not allow that to be running, which is the gas coming from Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. It was one country. So let's see. The Washington Post broke on December 21st that even though Western leaders were quick to accuse Moscow of blowing up the Nord Stream natural gas pipelines after months of investigation, no evidence has been found to back the allegation, according to 23 diplomatic and intelligence officials in 9 Western countries. And I'm quoting, "The recent disclosure by the Washington Post that there is no evidence Russia is behind the Nord Stream pipeline blasts is yet another example of the flimsy information war the West is desperately and recklessly waging against Russia, but at the same time losing." End quote. Scott Bennett, former U.S. Army psychological warfare officer and U.S. State Department counterterrorism analyst, told Sputnik. And I'm quoting Mr. Bennett. "Essentially, the West, specifically the United Kingdom and the United States, had been fanatical in their blaming of Russia for the blasts, relying on a group of useful idiots puppets like Senator Marco Rubio, Florida, Mitt Romney, and others who routinely make unsubstantiated claims, and emotionally flatulent and incendiary accusations against Russia." End quote. The former counterterrorism expert continued. Yeah, he's an expert because he says what the Russians want to say. But as I said, the evidence was not there, and these idiots, useful idiots, showed up in front of the world and said the Russians did it, without using either logical or factual elements to support their bullshit. Well, The newspaper went on by saying that some European officials did not think that Russia was responsible for the explosion, even those with inside knowledge of the ongoing investigation, and I'm quoting, don't conclusively tie Russia to the attack. For their part, US intelligence analysts have not intercepted anything from the Russian side indicated that Moscow was involved in the incident, according in the media to the media. On top of that, Moscow had little to gain from destroying pipelines that carried, this thing would have a little to gain in the short, but maybe in the long. So that's what these guys eventually, after 3 months, are able to tell us that Russia most likely did not do it. I said that for a long time, but nevertheless, we have a lot of statements coming from the U.S. saying that a lot. Blinken and what's his name, the semi-conscious president of the United States of America. You know who that is? Yeah. They said, oh, that's not going to happen. Those pipelines are not going to be functional. So we have another guy here who says that there were a lot of people who had, they were skeptical that the Russians would have done that to themselves and to the whole situation. And this guy uses Tucker Carlson, retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas McGregor, Columbia professor Jeffrey Sachs, and Ron Unz voiced the assumption that Washington could somehow have been involved in the infamous attack. And they say, for instance, Sachs, which is a Columbia professor, cited several reasons to back this assumption. Well, first, the direct radar evidence that U.S. military helicopters that are normally based in Gdansk, remember Gdansk? I do, were circling over this area. Second, Biden's threat earlier this year that one way or another the U.S. going to end Nord Stream. And the third, the remarkable statement by Blinken, the same kind of, remember, the same kind of thing, we did it, blah, 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 that was Liz Truss. Anyway, nonetheless, the Russian Ministry of Defense conducted its own investigation into the incident and came to the conclusion that the UK Royal Navy had taken part in the planning and executing the sabotage. All right, but you have to, you know what I mean? They didn't provide evidence yet, but anyway. This is it says, what's behind the explosive article's release? I think it's the fight between Europe and the United States that comes right there in our forefronts here, because of the LNG and because of the market that US is going to take over in Europe, and because of the protectionist Inflation Protection Act that excludes certain kind of businesses and protects business that is, not very market-oriented solution to solve a problem. But hey, you use socialism and need it, right? And whether the real reason might be, whatever the real reason might be, it appears that divisions are growing within the Western camp amid a simmering energy crunch and looming recession. Major EU states do not conceal their irritation with Washington's high LNG prices, liquefied natural gas prices, and Protectionist Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, which are hitting European industries and crippling the economy. For its part, Washington is expressing concerns about the EU's latest carbon border tax and gas price capping mechanism, which may backfire on American producers. So it's an economic war here and dominance. And I'm quoting, this admission by Europe that Russia is not responsible for the Nord Stream pipeline may be the first step in Europe departing from the life of economic prostitution it has suffered under the United States and seeking to return to the relationship with Russia reminiscent of a returning prodigal son, Bennett concluded. So the Europe admitted that all of a sudden they did not find anything. Well, I didn't find that in the article saying that the Europeans, but it was the Washington Post, Bennett noted that prior to the winter season, Germany had been remarking about the need to re-engage with Russia and even seek to end the sanctions out of their own self-preservation. He suggested that CIA and NSA, US federal agencies who constantly monitor the communications of European politicians, I'm quoting, determined that Germany was pulling away and needed to be reminded of their enslavement to the United States. As a result, 3 out of 4 pipelines were destroyed on September 26, 2022. So yeah, the Germans, as I said many times before, the Germans will have to say something because their economy is going to be destroyed, and they will be enslaved by the other guys, the defenders of truth and love and happiness. So, as I always said, you are virtuous until you have to actually feel some pain. When you start feeling some pain, then you become virtuous. And the more the pain, the more virtuous you are, because you are able and willing to stand fast and support or stand behind your values with pain. Sacrificing things. If you don't sacrifice anything, I can be virtuous with anything. It's like I tell you, hey man, I will give you about, how much you mean? $100,000? I will give you $100,000. I would give you that. Yeah, I would give you that. Yeah, I would have given you that if I knew. And all these kind of things. No. You give me. And that's going to create pain, hurt you. No, they say, well, I would give you. That means nothing. I will give you means nothing. I would have given to you if blah, 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 means nothing. Give it to me, and then you really did something. Words, and they think that by saying that, they are good people. No, you're not. Well, they show verbal support. I don't give a fuck. I want you to help me. I don't want you to tell me you will help me or you would have helped me. Yeah, that's nice, about 1% of help, but not even 1%. It doesn't cost you anything, just some energy by saying it. So that's the thing with the Europeans. The Europeans showed their virtue at the beginning of the war in Ukraine, and I said the moment it's going to start hurting them economically, they will back off. Why? Because, as I said many times, these guys who live in abundance, when you take them a little bit from their abundance, they're going to start crying. But the person who lives in scarcity, if you take them a little bit, they're already there. So if these guys, you take them the Coca-Cola, for instance, they will be dead. Oh my God, Coca-Cola is they can't live without. Or take them coffee away, or take them out of the stupid TV shows or the stupid games, and they will be done. That's it, man. And not only that, because you might say, well, that's our culture, that's all that. Yeah, but there's some things like air conditioning. Can't you live without air conditioning? Yeah, there's some states that you really need that air conditioning, but you're gonna, like, oh my God, don't stay there, get out. But you need it. The same, you need heat, right? But when you gonna start have less than you have, you're gonna start being more conserving energy and all that, and you don't like that. Anyway, I remember when I came here to the United States, and I was working as a wherever I was working, and not only that, but I noticed in other instances, you will see people, for instance, going to a restaurant and going to eat dinner, and let's say it's winter time, and they would leave their cars running outside. Half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, regardless how long they were eating or being inside a venue, their cars were running outside because it was cold, it was snowing and all that. In Romania, you would turn it off when you stop at a freaking traffic light. If it was, the studies say that you shouldn't do that if you're gonna be staying shorter than 45 seconds. So if you stay at a traffic light shorter than 45 seconds, you should leave your car running. Why? Because by turning it on, all that explosion and the blah 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 will cause more consumption. Good tip. So here's the same. These guys were leaving their cars on with the gas, when I think, what the hell? Remember, I come from Romania, where we didn't have gas, gasoline, and it was very expensive, and these guys were running it like that. Imagine that you're gonna give them gasoline, I don't know, $10 a gallon. They will be fucking, do you think they're gonna leave the car running? No, they will turn it off. Would I like it? No, because when they get back in the car, it's gonna be cold, honey. It hurts. Well, help Ukraine. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.